Hello beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about Adam Levine and his mistress Sumner Stroh. Now I'm sure you've seen this, obviously it's been everywhere. Basically a day last week, this 23-year-old woman named Sumner Stroh, who is new to LA, Instagram model, she came out on TikTok and basically said, you know, I've been having an affair with a man who's been married to a Victoria's Secret model. She goes on to share receipts and text messages with Adam Levine. So basically, he wanted to name his child that his pregnant Victoria's Secret wife is currently carrying in her belly, Sumner. And he decides to DM her that on Instagram, and the text they definitely look very flirty, and they're also very like just classic idiot boy text, like, whoa, you look so much better in real life, haha, so do I, haha. You know, he's married to this Victoria's Secret model who I guess English is not her first language, and it's very like typical tale as old as time, you know, foreign, beautiful woman marries famous man who then cheats on her. I think what's most interesting about this whole scandal is the way the world responds to it, because it's not an accident. It's not an accident that you're seeing Sumner get ripped apart, and Adam got off pretty easy. Like I feel the people's first response was, do we believe Sumner? Is she lying? Then it became, well, why is she making a big deal out of it, being a Victoria's Secret model? It seems like she's trying to do this for clout. Do we even believe her? And then it became, condemn her, burn her at the stake. She cheated, or she went into this situation with Adam knowing that he was married, even though he's twice her age. It's her fault. And I encourage people on TikTok to investigate your urge to punish women. Like, really investigate, because people could not, and largely women, this is the crazy thing, is that it was so many women with brains, women who are not like stupid women, right? But they think that their urge to approach this woman with pitchforks is justified, and they can't see that your urge to punish this woman is inherently patriarchal. Your idea of retribution for the mistress is inherently patriarchal, because if we're being real, bless you, Violet just sneezed. If you hear any jingling, obviously it's Violet. She's having the time of her life. When you think of the mistress and you think of her as not just guilty, and I want to be clear, I don't feel bad for this woman, right? People are very upset with her because they feel that she made herself to be the victim when she made the video. My first response to the video was seeing her say some things that maybe had some victim-y language, and I didn't give a singular fuck, because when I see a young woman in a situation that I can imagine is stressful, I'm just gonna allow her whatever ways she needs to deal with it. That's not really relevant to my perception of the story, right? I tend to believe what women are saying, unless it seems shady for some reason, but her sounding quote-unquote victim-y is not something that bothers me, right? It's not something that makes me feel bad for her. And I think people can't recognize that there's that distinction. Like, people are like, oh, she sounds victim-y, kill her. And I'm like, you don't think that's a little extreme? You don't think the reaction to this has been a little extreme of like, how dare she enter a married man? This man is 40 years old and he's on the internet DMing a woman half his age, asking if he can name his pregnant wife's child after her. And you're looking at the mistress. That's my first issue, is why aren't we looking at him first? I don't care what issues you have. And people, when I say this, people go, oh, you're a mistress apologist. No, I just don't think that her morality really matters. Not that it doesn't matter at all. I'm just nowhere near as mad at her as a lot of people are. And I don't know if that's because, you know, I have no stake in this game. I haven't been cheated on. There is no other woman for me that I can use Summer as a punching bag and feel some kind of retribution from. It does nothing for me. Why is it doing so much for you? Is the question I would ask the women who will not let go of the pitchforks in their hand. And it's not that I'm saying that she's a victim. Like, I don't feel bad for her at all. I don't feel bad for her in what happened. I do have a little bit of sympathy for how the internet reacted to it. I'm not going to say I feel bad about it, but I don't think it was correct, because people are persecuting her more than Adam, and she has committed less crimes. So it literally doesn't make sense to me. Because if one person is bound by law and that person signs something, they should be the first person to be held accountable. They are the one that agreed to that union. I am not expecting a 40-year-old man to accurately portray his relationship with his wife to the 23-year-old that he's DMing. So I'm already going to give her slack in the sense of he probably made it sound like she said that he had told her they were separating. And, she said, I'm new to LA. I don't know what's going on. That's what, obviously her using her being new to LA as a reason for this happening is stupid. But I'm not invested in why that means she needs to be punished. Does that make sense? And I think that's where the cognitive dissonance happens for a lot of people, specifically the women who want her head on a fucking platter. I'm like, you can recognize that a girl was acting in a way that isn't very smart without wanting her head on a platter. Because you being this mad at her is confusing. It's really confusing when that energy is not going to Adam at all, right? And there's already, allegations and rumors about Bahati was potentially cheating too, because this really big creator with 3.1 million followers, when people have big platforms, I don't know why sometimes when they're talking about things that seem like gossip, I'm like, I don't really know why they would lie about this, because this is only going to attract more negative attention than positive attention. So anyways, I believe the girl who was talking about this, she basically said her boyfriend, I don't know if it's her boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, whatever, years ago, she was like, I thought everybody knew that they were cheating on each other because years ago, Bahati was in my boyfriend's DMs. I thought this was public knowledge. And she shows some receipts. So I think it's presumptuous for us to assume that we know the natural dynamic of Hollywood couples. Did Adam come out with a stupid statement saying, I never should have strayed or flirted with anybody outside of my marriage and blah, blah, blah? Yeah, he did. His publicist wrote that. That means nothing to me. Things that white men do and say, I don't believe them. It's very smoke and mirrors. I can see his PR team writing that, even if their relationship is actually open and they don't want people to know that could be an option. Maybe they both cheated and they're not really that pressed about it. Believe it or not, there's a lot of marriages that are kind of like that are kind of don't ask, don't tell, or that are open, but nobody knows that they're open except for them. So all this is to say, it's possible that both of them are cheating. It's possible that they don't have a fully monogamous relationship, and that can be true, and they can still want it to look like they do have a fully monogamous marriage just because of the implications of them having to explain that to other people is a lot. Anyways, and we saw those press pictures, those paparazzi photos of them picking up their kid from school, holding hands, looking super happy and unbothered. That obviously also could have been staged, but even if it was staged, you do have to have a certain amount of this is messy, we don't really care, let's just make it look like we're fine, to be able to do that. What I'm saying is she doesn't seem to be that mad at him. That's what I'm saying. Even if you account for all the possible dips in perception and illusions, all signs for me point to they don't seem that pressed. They don't seem half as pressed as the women on the internet who want Sumner's head. And it's not a coincidence that it's women either. I think you see a lot of women want to punish other women for crimes that they themselves have committed in the past as a way to, it's the whole thing of how some generations are well, we don't want the next generation's life to be easier because we had it hard and it made us stronger. And, it's not fair if they get it easy after us. I think that's a lot to do with it. I think a lot of times the urge that certain women have to punish other women comes from like wanting to get some retribution for their past self for how they were punished, A, or B, maybe they got cheated on, they want to take out how they felt about the other woman on Sumner because she's the other woman. But to see like grown women being like, how can you say she's not guilty? I'm not saying she's not guilty. I'm just saying I really don't care. Like, I don't know how to explain this to people in a way that will make sense to them. I don't give a shit about what she did. Like, in the sense of this moral code that people have. I'm not saying, okay, let me clarify. I'm not saying I approve of what she did. I by no means condone what she did, but in the grand scheme of like a 40-year-old man cheating on his pregnant wife and then asking his mistress to marry the kid after her, that to me was the focal point. And the details of Sumner's morality was not something I was interested in exploring. Again, I've never cheated and I've never been cheated on. So I'm not taking her personally. That's really, I don't take her personally, right? I think what she did, okay, she's a young girl. Like, yeah, maybe she didn't do her due diligence and research into the relationship. Maybe she should have, like, there's a bunch of things she could have done. None of them would make, like, what she did wasn't illegal and it didn't breach any contract that she signed. The same thing can't be said for him. She doesn't have stake in this game. She doesn't have a family with this person. She didn't build anything with this person. She didn't sign anything with this person. So why is she being persecuted more than the person who did sign things and did make promises and did break promises and did lie? Because we hate women as a society. That's the answer. And like the thing is, you can recognize that what she did is wrong without being this upset about it. Like, and I wish women could more investigate where their urges come from, because they run before they think sometimes. And it's like, I know you think you're fighting for justice, but you're really fighting for women to be further punished and persecuted than men, because that's what always happened. We can talk about Amber. I'm not going to talk about Amber because last time I talked about Amber, people wanted to send me death threats all the time. But you do see some similarities in the way it became a spectacle and who the focus was. Right? We do see similarities in whose actions we let fall by and we don't talk about, and that's the man's. And then this obsession with like holding women that you view to be immoral, going back to Sumner, right? I'm not talking about Amber, okay? Let's just erase that. Forget I even said that. But when we're talking about Sumner and you perceive her morality to be janky, it's like, okay, so then don't fuck with her. I don't understand where the anger comes from. I don't understand where the hunger to eat this woman alive. I mean, I understand it in the sense of, you can't tell me there's not similarities between the way people are treating her and the way people treated Amber and the way people treat women who they perceive to have done bad things. Right? And they will do this all the while glossing over what the man did and call it justice. And I just think it's really self-serving. Like, when people really go in on a certain figure, on a certain woman who they think has done something immoral, and then they decide to play God, and all of a sudden she deserves nothing more than the hell that's coming for her. Hell or high water, she will know that she deserves nothing. And she did. And it's just so like overzealous. Is that the word? No. Overbearing. Sorry. I don't know why I said that. It's overbearing, and it's just over the top. It's OD. It's super OD. 23-year-olds fuck up. Literally get over it. Literally. Like, it's just, to me, it's something. I even saw Emrata make a video talking about how in these situations we should not be blaming the mistress. We should not be blaming the woman, because the man knows what position he's in. He's in a position of power and he's twice her age. Do you know what videos I saw after that? I saw a girl on TikTok who's probably half of Emrata's age. Now, if you don't know obviously, I'm sure you know that Emrata got cheated on by her average-looking husband, right? You should also know that Emrata got SA'd on the set of Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke. So when she's talking about power dynamics with older men in music, she knows what she's talking about, right? And she also has stake in the game in the sense of she has been misused by men in power and she has been cheated on by bums. She's been cheated on, so she knows the perspective of having another woman, having the other woman, home wreck your home. And she's still saying, hold the man accountable. And so why am I seeing young women who look half Emrata's age stitch Emrata saying, this is toxic femininity. Why can we never hold the woman accountable? Blah, blah, blah. That was mind-blowing to me. And that's what I'm saying when people are being incredibly self-serving in like making themselves feel better and scratching their itch of playing God. Right? Because if you see Emrata, who has been in the situation where her husband cheated on her and there is a mistress, and she's saying, don't blame the mistress. And she's saying, these men in power know what they're doing. And we know about not just the blurred lines thing, but in her book, I've heard her talk about her book. I haven't read her book, but she was talking about, she would go to photographers' houses. They would ask her to take her clothes off. She would get really uncomfortable. Like, she's somebody who's been in Hollywood and in that industry for a long enough time that she has experience with that dynamic. And even she can show compassion to this other woman, even though she has another woman who has wrecked her life. And so who are you as some 20-something girl on the internet to say, oh, she's acting out of toxic femininity? Because why do we never hold the other woman accountable? Would she not be like maybe just wiser than you in that situation? That's when I'm like, I don't understand why, even if you don't agree with her, even if you don't think she's wise, can't you have compassion for what she went through to get to that point? Because realistically, she would know. She would know. She has perception from both sides, and people want to take people's honest, vulnerable position and make it look like it's not just ill-informed, but like intentionally misled. Like she's intentionally being toxically feminine and not trying to hold the women accountable. God forbid she just has compassion for a young girl talking to an older man with power. And I think the lack of compassion that women show for other women in the name of justice is a plague. I think it's a disease. Like these women who think you're holding other women to justice and you can't see that your urge to punish and vilify is inherently patriarchal. Because a woman should be allowed to be a little bit bad without the entire internet wanting to literally kill her. Do you know what I'm saying? It just gets to be too much, and people couldn't like put together that even though I was saying like, I was basically just like, who do you think is getting more hate right now? Adam or Sumner? Also, if you hear any crinkling, again, it's my dog. She's just going ham with her toy. But yeah, I basically just asked TikTok, like, who do you think is getting more hate right now? Adam or Sumner? And everybody said, obviously Sumner. Like, a lot of people said, I'm glad you brought this up. Everything I've seen has been about Sumner, blah, blah, blah. And then some people, women, some women were like, well, obviously, because she's the one who posted it on TikTok, which I get what they're saying in a certain sense of she's the one that brought attention to it, but I don't get what they're saying in a certain sense because a woman saying, hey, this man cheated on his wife and asked me if he could name his child after me, and the after effect to be, okay, let's persecute Summer to the greatest extent of our trolling thumbs is just, it's a little bit nuts to me. And the justifications that came for it was just like, well, yeah, she played the victim. Everybody was so upset that she played the victim. God forbid a 23-year-old girl feels bad about herself. Kill her. Like, I don't think that these women understand the scope of what they're talking about is ridiculous. Like, to compare Adam and Sumner's infractions and to think in some way that Sumner comes up with more infractions, you really need to look deep into yourself about why you think women not only can't make like any kind of mistake and still like deserve to breathe, but also why you don't even take an interest in Adam's infidelity. Because I think a lot of women, like, they're just like, oh yeah, men cheat, and then they're just like whatever about it, and they don't even care to hold them accountable in a certain way. But they're like, but the mistress, because it kind of reminds me of that Jeanette McCurdy Red Table Talk, where she talks about her mom telling her, like, men will not know you and hurt you. Women will know you very deeply and still hurt you. You tell me which one is worse. That is so relevant, because the way a lot of us think of women is that women are knowing, understanding, nurturing creatures. The most celebrated woman in society is the selfless martyr, right? Not only does she do nothing for herself, not only does she do nothing wrong, but she will die for you. And women don't hold men, a lot of women don't hold men to the same standard that they hold women, because they expect more from them. And because, not just because of that, but also because they are secretly, like, again, with that whole, well, we didn't have it easy thing, they put onto women what other people have put onto them. And it's a way of, like, trying to feel better about what happened to them, in the way that we as women are always so persecuted for the tiniest things, while men get off for doing all these things. And this happens in every scope of society, right? You can talk about Brock Turner gets 9 months and then he's out about and again, and people are literally having to make internet groups saying where he is at bars so that women don't run into him. And then we're talking about how women go to jail for abortion. Like, this happens in every scope of society. And so I encourage women to be hypercritical about where your thoughts and urges to punish other women for moral infractions comes from, because it's not entirely your own brain and heart. I promise. I promise it's not, because the level of vitriol that has come for this 23-year-old girl who didn't break any marriage vows, didn't lie to her husband, didn't ask her ex-lover to name the child after him. Like, I think women don't understand that once a woman becomes unlikable to them and they approach them with pitchforks, like, girl, you need to take a step back and look at what you're doing. Because saying, oh, why is she getting more hate than the adulterer? And your answer is because she played the victim. That's it. What? It's just weak. It's a weak reason. It's a weak reason to have this much vitriol and hatred for someone, is because she played the victim, because you think she's trying to get clout off it. Because none of these things are, like, okay, if you compare what Sumner did and who she hurt to what Adam did and who he could potentially have hurt, they're different worlds, right? People are mad at Sumner because she played the victim. Who is her playing the victim hurting? It only hurts her own image, which people see as a reason to vilify her and burn her at the stake. Again, what is her trying to get clout off of this? Who is that actually hurting? If she is even doing that, which maybe she is, right? That makes her unlikable. That doesn't mean she doesn't deserve life. And I wish we could just make the distinguishment of, like, you can watch someone and decide that you don't fuck with them. But that doesn't mean that A, they're lying, and that doesn't mean that they don't deserve to tell their version of the truth, and it doesn't mean that they deserve dogpiling and, like, death threats and this amount of vitriol and punishment. And if you think that they do, that actually says a lot about what you think you deserve, right? Because a lot of times the way you do anything is the way you do everything. It's why I say, like, people who are really close-minded are really close-minded with themselves. People who are really not compassionate are really not compassionate with themselves. People who feel the urge to punish women, they probably punish themselves pretty hard. Do you understand? Because there is a group of us who watch that video and can decide that, yeah, maybe she's playing victim. Yeah, maybe she's not a likable person for whatever reason, but we just don't have stake in that game, and we don't, it's kind of just rolls off my back. It doesn't bother me. So I'd investigate why you feel so bothered. It's like this whole, oh, I won't let her get away with this. Like, why does it bother you so much? He's the one that actually broke a vow. I think we need to keep in mind the bigger picture and the bigger scope and where the energy is coming from and why, and what is it actually doing? What is it actually doing? The internet loves nothing more than a woman in a vulnerable position, like just like looking like bait for the vultures to come and eat. Like that is the internet's favorite meal. And so the bigger picture is giving the internet another woman to tear apart and like have this much vitriol and punishment for. This is a cycle that we've seen a bunch of times, and it doesn't help our cause. It really doesn't. And you're not playing God. And you're not getting any sort of retribution, and you're not like resetting the moral scales by making 20 videos about how Summer's a dumb bitch. Like it's you're not doing what you think you're doing. You're actually just perpetuating what already is. And I just wish we could see that. Anyways, that's all I have to say about this. Let me know your comments. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And yeah, that is it for today's episode. I will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.